Go take two. Hi, this is Steve Douglas. I am a new media teacher at Lake Forest High School, and you are listening to the Lake Forest Podcast. Did that work?
Professional.
Beautiful.
All right.
All right, here we go. Get your seatbelt on. Welcome to the Lake Forest Podcast, a podcast about the lovely city of Lake Forest, featuring topics like local news, sports, music, people, and food. My name is Pete, and I also live in Lake Forest with my co-host, Skoo Walker. Skoo, how you doing?
Doing good, Pete. How are you today?
Oh, absolutely fantastic.
A little overcast day.
Overcast, please. You don't want to get it. Well,
But the
you are
sun's
kind of
always
tan.
out.
You got a little tan going there. That's nice. I wonder if you play golf at all. Okay, we got a sponsor for
Not
the
good.
show. I just said play.
That's true.
Sponsor for the show is NeuroNoodle. Hey, parents of athletes, your kids get a physical every year, right? Well, include a brain map so you have a baseline to compare it to in case something happens. It only takes 20 minutes to get the data you need to know if your athlete should get back on the field. NeuroNoodle.com. Skoo, you know who NeuroNoodle could be insured by? Dakota Insurance Group. They've always got your back. Ask for Pam, right, Skoo?
Exactly.
Okay, one of the things we like to do here at Lake Forest Podcast is shed some light on local peeps doing some good things here in town. We are joined today by Steve Douglas, new media production teacher at Lake Forest High School. Let's chat with Steve and find out how his summer break is going on so far. Steve, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, is it okay if I'm coming from Lake Bluff? Is that all right? Is that okay, or is it just Lake Forest? What do you think?
Lake Bluff is fine.
No, we like Lake Bluff peeps.
Okay, good. All right, well, let's continue then. Yeah. No, things are good.
How's break going? You heading out somewhere?
Yeah. So summer break for teachers. It doesn't really happen as everyone kind of dreams and has this vision of a Disney time. We're always doing stuff, and especially after the last year and a half, there's a lot of professional development that's happening, trying to figure out what we learned, and there's a lot that we learned from the last year and a half. And then I also personally do a lot of professional work. So I teach new media, which is video production, and so I have the opportunity to be able to do that and to be able to work with some great community folks. I do a lot of work for nonprofits during the summer. So I've been up in North Chicago with Renew Communities, telling the stories of the amazing work that they're doing. They're putting residents from North Chicago into houses that they can have long-term, not the rental situation, which is about 60 or 70%, but they're pushing more home ownership. They're working with the mayor, working with a lot of people there to do some amazing work. And so I get to come alongside and tell their story. And it's one of the things I love to do, to be able to take the craft that I get to teach throughout the year and to be able to continue to master my craft and to be able to give back as well. So that's one part of it. I also, during the summer, I work with We Make Movies out of LA, and I have been for the last 4 years. And so they do all kinds of incredible initiatives around the world. And so I get to partner with a guy named Sam Messman, who I met years ago, and he is doing some amazing stuff. So we run Chicago Summer Stories together. Last year, we ventured back to my hometown in St. Louis, so St. Louis Summer Stories down there. And then in August, we're going to do a virtual one all across Latin America with Orphan Starfish, which is an incredible mission from a guy out in the East Coast who helps orphans be able to kind of move through oftentimes really troublesome situations where they oftentimes will be human trafficked or drug situations, and they give them skills and tools to be able to get out of that and to be able to really truly start their life again. So I get to come along and be able to teach them some skills of how to be able to tell stories visually, how to be able to do social media marketing, do other elements that really give them a hope and a chance to change their lives. So I get to do some really cool stuff during the summer. It's not much of a break. And then I start soccer. I coach sophomore boys in the fall, and that starts early August. So that whole summer break thing is a bit dispelled. I'll just say that.
Skoo, we've just had another person on the show who we're going to have to stand in line to go into heaven.
Yeah, that's right. Break? I tell you what, I do. Steve doesn't take a break. He's always on the go. So.
And now you two know each other, right?
We do.
Oh, yeah.
We get to spend the fall and the winter together. Skoo does an awesome job supporting the athletics. He's the voice, the PA around basketball and football. as well as other elements. Senior nights, he's always there. That's when we know it's a big moment, when Skoo shows up. It's super great. And that's one of the things. I'm also the varsity girls soccer coach, and so, or the assistant. So when he comes for senior night, it's like, ooh, all right, this is gonna be fun. So the flags come out, and Skoo comes in. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, no, but we've been on the sidelines together for a really long time. So this is going to be my 17th year at the high school coming up in the fall. And so we've seen a lot of really good football. We've seen some incredible runs. Actually, I'm curious, Skoo, your favorite. Mine, it goes back to the amazing semifinal run in 11, I guess, right? 2011, where that team was kind of like, well, are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to do this? And then they just put an incredible run together with kind of, Tommy Reese had just moved on, and it was one of those groups that got to find their identity, and super fun. But
Owen Williams, was that class?
Yes, ran through everybody. Yep,
amazing.
But they just came together, right? It was like a team. It was a true team, and it didn't have the star-studded kind of groups that we've had in the past. The big names, and it was fun to be able to see them. Yeah,
and very disappointing when they lost, because that was the big one. Thought they were going to run it through there.
And they did. They had a chance, right? And then they run into those schools out west who just run triple options down our throat. And it's like, oh, here we go again. But yeah, in basketball as well. Just thinking Vogrich and Evan Boudreau and all these different folks who've come through. And Skoo sits right in front of the broadcasters. So one of the cool parts of my job is I have students who want to be able to do this going forward. Connor Clark is a great name that everyone in this community, if you don't already know it, will know it. He is going to be a sophomore at Nebraska, and he has already jumped in, and he is a professional, truly getting paid at the ESPN affiliate in Lincoln during school. But he took advantage fully of it. And so we have some broadcasters who then go through the live stream to be able to show that. So you'll hear Skoo's voice of announcing it, and then you'll hear the color and everything else. So no, it's a really cool combination, honestly. I think it brings a lot of life to it for those who can't make it. For a lot of grandparents, like in Florida and Arizona, who listen in, it's just part of the fabric of what's happened. And it's been really cool to see that. And we've got other folks who are coming in to fill the shoes as we go forward. So there's not a lot of downtime. There's a lot of resources, a lot of opportunity. And our kids, honestly, it's really cool for them to be able to be part of a professional experience like that. And it's kind of second to none.
Yeah, and I got to say, it's pretty professional when you say that. I mean, it's, compared to some other schools and all that, you guys do a fantastic job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things that kids get to learn and try and kind of iterate, right? You don't see our first version. You don't see our second or third version sometimes when you see some things online. It's helping those kids understand, but giving them confidence, right? To be able to try those things and to be able to make it work. And then they find a passion. And then they put the work into it on their own. And that's where they go from good to great. And that's where you guys see a lot of that, especially, again, football, basketball, some of the sports work. It's a lot of fun to see them kind of catch that. And then they do all that work. So Connor doing 55 events over 3 years is just incredible. And really, truly, like, nobody else is doing that at the high school level. And so he went through the college process, and I'm like, hey, you have to flip this, right? You've got incredible assets. It's like you're applying for a job. But you have a better resume than everybody else. And so I was like, walk in with confidence and say, hey, I can be an asset right away. And that's exactly what he did. He was calling women's basketball games like freshman year, first semester. And he was helping out and incredible.
And he's got the tool. His voice is, spectacular.
Yeah. A friend of mine, like, they listened to him. They thought he was like an adult or somebody in their 20s and 30s. They had no idea. And so that is a gift. There's no question about that.
So, Steve, how does somebody take your class? Is it an elective? Like, I'm from the city. I've only lived here 3 years. Skoo's been here forever. You've been here 17. How does somebody go about and take your class? Like, I got a nephew that's going to be a senior at the high school. I'm going to say, this Steve guy's pretty cool. You should check it out. How do they find out more about it?
Yeah, no, thanks for mentioning it. It is an elective, so students freshmen through senior can take the class. In fact, I have a lot of seniors who come in and they've been taking a lot of different classes and they don't have a lot of space in their schedule. And then they come in and they're absolutely all-stars because they're able to kind of put the pieces together. They have a little bit more time to be able to do it. But yeah, it's free and open to anybody who comes. It's a fun class. It's a break in the day for a lot of kids, so it's not a lot of pressure. But once they kind of get the bug, just like this, you want to keep doing it. And you guys, I know, started this not that long ago, and you're prolific, right? You're doing it all the time because It's fun. You get to meet people, you be able to connect, you get to collaborate. But new media, as people get into it, they realize it's way more than just kind of film production or social media storytelling, which you do get those skills. It really is an amazing creative community where you can kind of feel like you can be who you are. Again, a break in the day, so it's not nearly as stressful. Everything that we do in class, you can do during the time that we're together. And so it's not a lot of pressure as much as it is just opportunity. And we've been blessed with a lot of resources, and we're going to get to all the incredible alums who have now poured back into the program, which give students an opportunity to be able to see what it is to be a professional actor, obviously in Vince's case, but also a cinematographer who came back from LA. And then we have all of these folks who are doing this in advertising and marketing and various forms of communication. And so as our world continues to change, I believe new media is an essential skill. Because as AI comes in and automates a lot of jobs, it already has, right? What's the differentiation? It's how do you communicate? How do you talk to your audience and be able to move them from wherever it is, from a sales perspective, from whatever kind of learning, move them from here to there. And a lot of times, again, routine jobs or even higher level jobs. Like when I was in high school and college, they said, hey, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, you're set for life. Right. And now I have a lot of disappointed friends who are doctors and lawyers whose their job, unless they're the very, very top, has been automated. And so we have to kind of think forward. And that's kind of a unique position as a high school teacher, but that's how I actively look at it. How can we best prepare our students for the future 10, 15, 20 years out? We have to have skills and give them skills that we know that no matter what happens with technology, they're going to be able to be successful and be the leaders in whatever space and place they're in. So I'm not preparing kids just to go to Hollywood. In fact, Vince and I had some great conversations about the changes in Hollywood. And I love that because that prepares and gives me more preparation for my students to kind of guide and find the right fit, not only in college, but also in career. So they're not frustrated. And so they can really be the most successful, person they can be with the skills that they've been given.
So you mentioned Vince. I'm assuming Vince Vaugn, being the guy that's only lived here 3 years. I saw a post that you put up. He visited you. Can you give some background? All I know is what Facebook tells me, Steve. So that's why I'm asking you. What happened?
And I'm glad you're a critical thinker and not just taking what Facebook tells you. That's good. That's part of what we teach as well. Media literacy, super important. So somebody called him Mr. Vaughn, and it was just super awkward. So we call him Vince. Not that you're super tight, but it just kind of comes more naturally. And really, it speaks to how incredibly kind and how incredibly connected and present he was. I was blown away. So I met Vince 4 years ago. He came back for a big celebration we had for the program. And then he randomly texted me like 5 weeks ago. And honestly, I have no idea how he got my number. Not that it's like really hard to do, but I thought a kid was pranking me. And they're like, hey, what's going on? Just checking in. I was like, this is not true. And so he comes back oftentimes for the 4th with his family, just to be able to reconnect, and comes to the parade over in Lake Bluff. And so he's got a daughter who's in 5th grade. And so he's like, hey, I was just looking at some of the local kind of film camp opportunities, do anything about it? And I was like, actually, I don't, because I've never done one of these summer programs here in the community, just to kind of take a break and be able to do some things in other areas and communities. And so, but I was like, hey, if you want to get involved, just let me know, and I'd be happy to put this together. And so the next morning at 8 a.m. his time, he texted me and he's like, I'm in, let's do this. And I was like, really? I was totally blown away and shocked. So through about 4 phone conversations later, I realized he is an absolute advocate for education, loves it, wants to help, wants to give back, and really do something truly kind of next level that can really impact kids. And so we totally aligned on kind of education, pedagogy, philosophy. And I was just like completely, I still am. It's still surreal. And I'm kind of in shock that this all even happened. But he was so incredibly helpful, thoughtful, and really got into it. So he came in first day, and I paired him up with his producing partner, Paul Basie, so Vince graduated in '88 from the high school. And Paul Basie was the guy who was in the basement of the school in telecom, which is what it used to be called. And he would be the one editing reel to reel and doing all the work and putting all this crazy, incredible stuff. Like, their work still stands up to this day. I mean, it's really incredible. Yeah. They did something called LF Vice off of Miami Vice. And it was just like, wow, still to this day, we look back at it. And so Vince was acting, and then Paul was kind of the producer. And so then about, I think his late junior year, senior year, then Vince joined in on telecom and just experienced that community. Really loved that. And he said, hey, I would love to give back and be able to continue to build into that. So by day one, he was there, and then he's like, yeah, I'm going to be able to come back for an hour on Tuesday. I've got some other stuff I've got to take care of. I'm like, totally fine. I really appreciate your time. Came back on Tuesday, stuck around for the full 5 hours. So we went from 10 to 3, and then that's when we knew we had him. And he came up, and here we had a professional cinematographer, actually four alums who are all professional cinematographers in the public room. So the most beautiful room at Lake Forest High School. And they were going through shots and different setups. And then Vince starts directing. And it was the coolest thing in the world, because he was like, all right, talking to the kids, like literally 5th and 6th graders, and talking about kind of, hey, let's set this up. What do you guys think about this? And like, it was next level. And the kids who, they're 10, 11. How do they know Vince Vaugn? Not directly as we do. Right. And so he was just a really nice guy that clearly knew what he was doing. And he was there with his 10-year-old in his lap, and it was super comfortable. And it was just incredible the way he was able to connect and give feedback and to be able to encourage the kids. It was just phenomenal. So it was like this really unique mix of a dad who's truly caring, but also an absolute masterclass in like directing and acting that's been 40 years in the making in his career. And so for him to come back and give back, it was just exceptional. And basically the next 2 weeks, he was in. Like, he was calling me at 8 or 9 in the morning. Hey, what do you think about this continuity project? What if we tried this and that, this, that? I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Cause like, I'm a nerd in this, but he like knew even more about education stuff that I'd never heard of before. I'm like, this is insane. And then for him to think through the lens, and he was super complimentary and really positive, but also like, hey, let's try this. What do you guys think about, if we worked on this skill, and then that would build to that skill, and truly thinking like a teacher. And it was the coolest thing, literally the peak of my kind of professional, teaching career by far.
That's awesome.
Your class, in my humble opinion, I mean, I don't think it should be an elective. The way things are going with technology today, I think kids should be required to do it. Acting, I think, to how you appear in the public, I think that can help. I think that should be something that the kids should be, have to go through. Personal finance. I mean, these are life skills. I mean, you're in the middle of it. When the kids take your class, Steve, because Skoo and I are trying to get this podcast going with, zero budget, zero production skills. What are the top 3 things that kids will take away from your class when they go through it?
Yeah, I think number one is just the confidence to be able to use that incredible device in your pocket to be able to tell stories well. So it's not about access to incredible technology, even though we are gifted with a lot of great cameras and other things, but it really isn't. It's about how do you functionally use the camera. All kids grow up and they're doing TikToks, right? There's zero inhibition towards kind of creating, but they're just copying, which, by the way, is a great first start. But then how do you create? How do you do something meaningful? You really have to think about your audience. And that's where you start getting into more higher order thinking and some of the skills that we get to talk about, and talk about why that movie, you really liked it, or why that TV show on Netflix is binge worthy. Like, we start to kind of deduce and break those things down so that kids can then create more meaningful content. And that, I think, to your point, is essential, because they're already creating and they're already, throwing stuff up there, but they're not really as thoughtful. And to be able to use these mediums that we have, which are so incredibly impactful, again, like you said, it doesn't have to have a budget. You just want to put the time and make it better. And the more reps you do it, the better you get. Just like I'm sure you guys could testify, right? This is way better than probably the first or the 36th or the 50th podcast. It's just a matter of you learn from your own experience. And that's the most valuable teacher. And that's the number 2 takeaway, is that you can learn from what you do, and it's a natural confidence build. It's not us sitting around lecturing. Or me lecturing. In fact, I don't believe that's the best way to teach. And studies tell us that. You learn from your own mistakes, you learn from experiences. So we do a lot of community-based work as well. So we go, and during the pandemic, it was awesome. We had a project with a bunch of local businesses and going, hey, COVID hit us hard. How are you now transitioning going into the winter, last winter? So we had Kittles, we had Donatis, we had Left Bank, and you name the kind of local establishment, and we tried to connect with them to be able to act as a service. And what was cool about it is we automated the whole process so they didn't have to be in person, but then yet the value add was they got a free, commercial, 30 seconds, a minute, but it was their story. And so it was not just trying to sell something, it was the next level of being able to then tell your story as kiddos and thanking the community for the work that they've done. But hey, you can come in and still do this or do that, and, whatever it might be that they want to kind of individualize to that. So it's relevant work, it's something that's exciting, but also there's a lot of creative freedom. And so that's important because I want the kids to be able to kind of take that next level. It's not me pushing them. That's the beauty of it being an elective, is that fact kids come in and find it, and then they're inspired to be able to do things that they really love. And that all changes too, right? So as you grow and as you experience different things, you recognize these core skills are transferable to anything and everything that you're going to do in life.
How do you hold their attention for more than 5 minutes? I mean, I could see it with your class, you could do it, but like a history class, like how do those teachers do it? I mean,
yeah, so it's challenging. And as you can imagine, the last year and a half has made that much more real. So I actually teach 2 social studies classes as well. And so we redid the whole entire curriculum of the freshman class. And so it is about relationships. It's about trust. It's building that, which, as you can imagine, for the incoming freshmen, really difficult to be able to establish that. But you know what? I'm always kind of the optimist. That's why I get into teaching, right? Is to be able to kind of think about how can we make this better and improve things. And what I found, and I talked to a local psychologist about this, is that she saw an actual drop in the girls specifically that came into her office complaining about anxiety and kind of peer pressure, because the positive of everything being on Zoom is the fact that you could kind of be, you take away all of the stuff in the hallway, right? So you don't care as much about what people look like, and other things kind of were removed, and you could actually connect as human beings. And so there were some positives kind of in that. And in social studies, we delve into those kind of topics and challenging issues, and to be able to kind of have an opportunity to talk about both sides, and to be able to think about how can you research and understand and critically think about everything that you hear, including, I tell them, what I tell you. It's important for you to be that citizen who is thinking and engaging various points of view so that you can really deduce and go, okay, what are the facts, and how can I then support an argument and build an argument through more traditional ways. And so a lot of it is that kind of creative control, as well as giving the students kind of ownership in their learning. And that's how you engage them. Me standing up and talking to them, that's super boring. It really is. And so we do that by breaking up different elements, but really giving them ownership in their own ability to be able to create projects. And so project-based learning is honestly the solution to the boredom, because it's not one way facing, it's not one conversation and then you do this like we learned and traditional learning is. But we have opportunities, and the school has done tremendous work over the last 16 years I've been there to move away from the old model, which is the authoritative, I'm the expert, you're not, and you listen, brain dump, and then you tell me back on the test. We all know that doesn't work. In fact, it's really interesting. Education now as a whole, you see, colleges getting rid of ACTs and SATs, and no matter how you feel about that, like the disruption is real, and it's good because this is becoming more personalized and more about the student and truly how each student's different. And that's the beauty of the technology. The technology then enables that personalized learning to take hold, and then you can do a lot of cool stuff within that. And so thankfully at Lake Forest High School, we have a lot of really dynamic teachers who have totally embraced this. There's a lot of other teachers I know in other places and spaces, particularly higher ed, who are very much like, nope, I just want to keep doing it the way I did it for 50 years. But the world's changed. And like we said before, we're preparing these students for a new world, and that old model doesn't work. You can Google that information and find that specific information. It's really about how do you assimilate and problem solve by using prior knowledge to be able to then negotiate that, communicate that output, and then to be able to, what my passion is to show that in a dynamic way, and to be able to do a personal reflection. So you're writing out, and then you voice it, and then you add visuals on top of it to be able to show and demonstrate your learning in a more dynamic way than filling in, ovals, or be able to stand up to your point and, be super afraid to be able to present to a room. No, let's normalize this, and let's kind of level this up based off the technology. Let's use that well, while still focusing on the real core skills that are the most important things that'll, prepare our kids for the rest of their lives.
You're bringing up mental health, which is a real big issue. I own a mental health company, and the people that I talk to in the school districts, I don't hear them talking about, when they talk about budgets, I don't hear about budget increases for the counselors, the special needs kids. I mean, we've gone a year and a half now of going offline, disrupting the cycle, the routine, and I don't know, maybe Lake Forest is, but a lot of the high schools, grade schools, there's a lot of kids that are going to come in with a lot of issues, and the budgets aren't there for the counselors and the psychologists to help those kids out. You got any thoughts on that, Steve?
Yeah, you know what? I would say one of the wonderful things that Dr. Holland, who just moved on from here, going out to Naperville, that was a huge focus that she had, and rightfully so. And so I would say from her 6 years that she was at the high school, that was one of her top priorities. And she did an incredible job of thinking of every single kid in the building, every human in the building, but particularly every kid. And so she actually did build in a tremendous amount of support, as well as, tiers of support. She's a really strong systems thinker. Like, she was able to build out different systems to be able to support all kinds of kids. In fact, that was her kind of biggest passion. And so I would say, honestly, Lake Forest High School is positioned in an incredible way, not only now, but going forward, to support every single kid. And that goes, absolutely through special ed, through kind of understanding how every kid can learn and how can we scaffold and support within the classroom. So there's a lot of co-teachers and there's a lot of other folks who are in the classroom. So again, away from the sage on the stage model and going, okay, how can we have more professionals there so that student who is feeling, anxious or doesn't feel like they connect and are involved, there's another professional adult in the room who's looking out for that kid while things are happening, right? It doesn't have to be a pull-out model of like, okay, that kid needs to go. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times you can be proactive in that support. And she was very active and very thoughtful. And honestly, I would say the board, previous boards, they supported that. And that does take a lot of resources. It does take a lot of money, but it's money well spent, because not only does that support the kids who are most fragile, but honestly, it reinforces the kids who, quote, have it all together in that moment, right? And we all know adolescence is the hardest time in life because you're trying to figure out your identity. You're getting pulled and pushed in so many ways. You have so many hormones that are impacting that. You need a lot of support. And oftentimes, I would say before Shayla came in, it really did come down to kind of your friend group or your clique. But I would say through these different elements and very intentional thinking and honestly, very proactive, like further ahead than everybody else is thinking, she was able to build in those structures. And I give her full support on that. But also Patrick Sasson, Dr. Sasson did an awesome job of, building and breaking down walls between the counselors, social workers, and really bringing like a mesh support system to be able to kind of next level. Again, every kid, not just the most vulnerable in that moment, but that kid who's taken 4 APs and then they hit the wall. Yeah. We don't talk about that kid often, right? Until they're in real trouble. And no, let's support them by making sure that they understand there's a new media involved, right? That we need to do more of that, to be honest, is like, hey, there's not just one route to go. You need to take full advantage of these other classes and, forget about the tail that wags the dog of college admissions. And all I care about is what I'm being told, that the bumper stickers around town and, all the pressure that they feel. That's our next kind of nut to continue to crack, is like, okay, no. This is a personal fit decision, finding where you're going to, succeed best, not necessarily just what everybody else kind of parades around town.
Skoo, you got, I'm a hogging again. Hop on in.
We had the top 10 too soon.
Oh no, Steve's definitely the second half of the year for sure.
No, I got to tell you, Steve, I mean, Lake Forest is a great high school, and the teachers in there are great. And I got to tell you, working with you indirectly, so to speak, and then seeing what you do with the kids, you're one of the main reasons why it's been such a successful high school for the kids' experiences and all that. So, hats off to you, all you guys do there, and it's phenomenal.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. One of the great things that we do in class in new media is we interview a bunch of other teachers. And I have to say, it is the most inspiring thing that we do, because I get to bring in all kinds of teachers from all different subject areas, and they're equally passionate, but they're also equally focused on the student. And honestly, before our current communications director, who's doing an incredible job, we struggled with this. We struggled to communicate how incredibly impactful the student experience was, how varied that was, and how individualized that was, but how many great educators we have in the building who are truly doing this at an incredibly high level, but also they're thinking well ahead. They're leaders in their spaces, and they're around the country. And we need to, and that's why I appreciate you guys amplifying this, because oftentimes people drive past and go, hey, it's a beautiful building. Oh, it's so great. The kids are awesome. Yeah, great. And I think the teachers, yeah. But they don't fully understand that. And that's what I get to do, is bring them in and we ask them questions about their interests, their background, very similar to this. And you get to see it. And it's so encouraging, because there are so many great teachers at Lake Forest High School. As I've talked about all the time, there's definitely, in every occupation, you've got that percentage of kind of people who are like, that's how I've always done it, and, whatever. And that's all shifted, right? In the business world, but in education as well. And so when I came in, I was shocked with how many teachers are that engaged and that high performing at the high school. And honestly, it's just continued to be in the high 90 percentile of people who love what they do, and they come to the school and they are ready to make things happen. And honestly, that was my story. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in St. Louis, born in Northern Virginia, but I did my research. And I would say this is another thing that we need to continue to work on. And I love, again, the way that the communications department has continued to present Lake Forest High School as a place, a destination for people to come at the highest possible level. And so I came from ESPN, went to grad school, and then came in, and I had an offer from Evanston, from New Trier, and then I was going through the process of New Trier, and then Lake Forest. Those are the kind of people you want to be able to be at your high school, right? Are the people who you're pulling away from New Trier, you're pulling away from other really top schools. And honestly, we're there, but we still need to do even more. I'm not saying Stevenson, because Stevenson, that's kind of their highest priority, is to promote themselves, but there's a middle there to be able to continue to show and tell all the great stories that are going on in our school.
Well, I think another value add you bring is you're part of the community. You live here and you know how it operates, and that's a big value add, for you too.
You know what? And that's the biggest challenge too, because we all know the cost of living is really, really difficult. And to be able to live in the community, I think I'm one of maybe 9 or 10 at the high school out of 150. That number needs to change, honestly.
Absolutely.
Because just like police, fire, other folks who are here as public servants, you need to have those people that you run into at the grocery store. And there's just good stuff of accountability of that kid riding down the sidewalk. Who's going to say something to that kid? You know what I mean? I have no problem doing that.
When I was growing up here, it was, even if it was summer or whatever, we're running into teachers. We're out doing our thing. It's a whole different mindset, I think, of education when you do see those teachers out and about in the community.
And they're coaching and they're serving continuously, right? And I love how all kinds of different people step up and serve, but you're right, it's part of the fabric. And honestly, I feel like we've lost that a little bit. When I first came in, there was probably 25, 30 teachers who lived in Lake Bluff or Lake Forest. And so that's something that I think we need to kind of talk about as a community and really evaluate and value.
And that not only the teachers, but that, the firefighters, the police, again, growing up was a different world when I was growing up, but everyone lived in the community. So you knew everyone. And that's
it. And that's a value you have to put money behind, right? You have to put resources behind. You have to be intentional around. Otherwise, there has to be a balance to the economic, elements. Of course, I love, capitalism and all the rest, but you have to also put structure in to make sure the values are represented. And that's, I think, an important thing for people to really start talking about. I don't even know if it's in the public discourse. It just kind of happened. And there's got to be a way to kind of make that work. And again, I don't think it's a lack of desire. In fact, I know it's not a lack of interest and desire from teachers. It's just a pure economic play.
Right.
It's money.
Absolutely.
No, I hear that, Oh, Steve, any other teachers that you think, I think this is a good angle, teachers that teach electives, to put a spotlight on. Do you have anybody that we could reach out to next that you could recommend that we could, help them out, get more?
Absolutely. You know what? Absolutely. There's so many great teachers. Carolyn Bielski lives here in Lake Bluff as well. She's one of those 10. She's
Yeah.
doing outstanding things, just dynamic work. Her kids are going through the high school. I've got
Yep.
2 middle schoolers about to go through the high school. Again, those are the fabric folks, and I would love to connect you with them because they're really
Perfect.
dynamic, incredible, creative, inspiring people, to be honest. They make our community better. The work they do in the high school is one of those things that the kids need to know more about, the parents need to know more about, so that they do make that intentional move. Because it's so easy, especially under the high academic pressure at the high school, to go, I'll take a study hall or 2 study halls. That's
Yeah.
the biggest kind of obstacle to electives. I'm going to take 2 study halls. You're like, okay,
What?
you need to fully understand the impact of that decision. Number one, that kid has like 3 hours during the day where they're not doing anything. And guess what they're going to be doing? Let's see, I'm just going to be messing around, right? It's not like
No,
they're turning
Steve, they're
off.
doing their homework.
Their homework on Netflix. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I wish were legal is cell phone blockers. You can get them from China. You can shut down a classroom. I just wish. Anyways,
Well, you know what? On that, actually, that's an
Yeah.
interesting thought because obviously I teach new media. And so I am fully and have been. We need to figure out how to teach our students how to use the most incredible invention and device in our generation, right? So there's one thought of like, okay, we just need to get rid of it. And honestly, the more that I continue to wrestle with it, I think there's more validity to that. But also, where are we teaching responsible use of a phone? You guys sit in meetings with other people and they're on their phones, right? So adults
Yeah.
don't do this well. And so it's like, okay, how do we not only demonstrate that, but also how do we show how to be able to balance use of that tool against all the momentum of the algorithms, as well as these businesses who are incredibly thoughtful, but also manipulative in the use and trying to get people to be more addictive with the use of their phones. But to your point, that's where I'm like, okay, it is addictive in nature, and that's the way they're setting it up to be able to continue to rise their quarterly profits. I get it, right? But with our adolescents who already have impulse control challenges, maybe it is something we have to kind of go more draconian and be like, all right, we're just not going to do it. But again, that needs to continue to be
Right.
sorted out because they need the skills to be able to build the discipline, to be able to turn that off themselves, just like anything else. It's complicated, but it's something we need to talk about.
Steve, I mean, we got to bring you back, man. You are a cool dude. I'm going to tell my nephew you got to take his class. Holy crap.
Well,
edit
thank you.
that out in
It's
post.
honestly a class that I never had in high school. It's something
Yeah.
I always
Right.
wish I could have.
Telecom.
But yeah, exactly. No, telecom has been around for 53 years. I used to be in the basement. Skoo,
Yep.
when you were there, I'm assuming, did they do the lunch DJ down in the basement? Was that
Oh
something
God,
that
no.
you went through?
We didn't
Okay.
even have that. I mean, it was, people would come up from like, what are you doing down in the basement? Oh, there's the stuff on the computer,
And they liked it that way. They're like, don't come in.
Telecom used to be like, oh, they're doing the music for the plays and all that.
Yep. Some of the tech kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what year did you graduate again?
82.
Okay. Yep. So part of that. So did you spend some time over at West Campus as well then, or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
2 years of it. 2 years of fun in the sun.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, no, we actually did a documentary on the 75 years of school, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it was quite funny because we interviewed all these different alums, and nobody knew exactly like when West Campus shut down because everyone just kind of blocked it out of their whole like memory.
I think it was 83 was the last group to come through there.
That's hilarious. I've heard 78, I've heard 79, I've heard 81, I've heard 83.
Yeah. I remember because my brother was the last class that went there. So that was 80. Well, he graduated in 83. So his sophomore year would have been 80.
Okay. 81 or 80.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's, but it was quite the place, Pete. It's foremost known, if you haven't heard this, the best line is the fact that they hired the foremost like prison architect in the world at that time to be able to design West Campus. So everything, it looks like a prison and everything has like curved like areas. And so kids could just, hide wherever they want to. It was like the most depressing place ever.
It was painful as a freshman going there because everything was the same. When every corner you turned was the same. And it was just chaos.
You didn't know idea where you were.
You had to you had to know where your locker number was, and then at least you could look at the locker numbers. Oh, no, I'm not. or when where the media center was. You knew where that was.
That was the library. Is that right? Is that what they called it? Yeah.
You know, you're talking to an inner city kid, so I'm see that right there. That's my violin playing for you guys.
No, but you know what? But Pete, here's the thing. Being from the inner city, you actually went to a school. This place was like crazy. You could not figure out even where classrooms were.
You know,
It's a prison. Yeah.
Well, that's how Microsoft built their campus. You know, you're supposed to be smart. Take a tour of that place someday.
Oh,
we're on a bad tangent now. Steve, we thank you so much for coming on the Lake Forest podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys
awesome.
for doing this. I love it. I listened to an earlier episode. You guys were talking just about, I think it was Art who mentioned just the media desert of Lake Forest. And it's true. Again, been here on and off. Well, lived here on and off for the last 16 years, and I've seen, Lake Forester go away and see all the different local outlets that have popped up and then gone away. So thank you guys for offering that kind of resource, as well as getting, again, people's stories. That's what we do. That's what I love to do. And it's so powerful to connect our community, especially without that traditional media. And again, I'm not bemoaning and saying, oh, we need to bring back traditional media. We need to keep thinking about new media. Like, how can this be effective, and how can you connect more people? Because that's really what media does at its best. It informs, but also really draws people together in powerful ways. And so for our students to be, engaged in that, I appreciate you guys trying and working through this. And so I'd say keep working on it, keep making things happen.
Hey, Steve, you need to can your class and bring it out to the public, because not just for kids.
Yeah.
You should be teaching this out to the general population in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, Knollwood, because it's fantastic. Everyone benefits.
Well, thank you. That is something that honestly that Vince and I were talking about, is going, how can you do that? How can you make sure that these values, as well as the skills, you are transferable? Because you're spot on, thinking about LinkedIn, think about the way that you present yourself professionally. These aren't just skills for high school kids, although this will totally differentiate the high school kids as they go through a very competitive college process. But yeah, how can you do that professionally?
Even the older community, because they have to use the technology
amen.
that they have no idea how to use. And, Lake Forest Place, all those places so benefit from you guys.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, I know one of the business incubator programs tried to kind of do some of that work too, which I think was fantastic. And I think you're right. There's a need. And actually, that's one of the cool things I'll mention just in closing. Lauren Fabry, who went through the program, took all 8 semesters of the program. So you can repeat new media as well. And so she ended up doing, she said 150 projects in 8 years. And most of those were her senior year and junior year, as she was doing professional work, getting paid in the community to be able to do these things at a really high level. So if you guys see the superintendent's videos in the last 6 months, she was producing that. And so she would work and sit down with her own equipment, totally separate from me. And she would interview them and take all the skills she learned in the class, but be able to give back to the community in that unique way. But also like all around Drone Nation, all kinds of folks in the community really adding value. So to your point, just really being able to engage. The community is a big part of what we do.
Yeah, Steve, we haven't even touched your work with 1871. I mean, and show and tell.
Yeah, we'll do that again. We'll do it another time for sure.
Right,
I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this.
Well, hook us up with those teachers, those electives. We'll keep whoever wants to come on, man. We got to clue everybody in.
I love it. No, it'd be a huge asset and a huge benefit, honestly, to the community, especially the kids coming through. Everyone knows it's a great resource, but they don't know all the different aspects because there are so many great things in the high school.
Outstanding. Okay.
All right, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Lake Forest Podcast. Please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and smash that like button on Facebook, Instagram, and follow us on Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to hear about in the upcoming shows. Again, I'm Pete, and I can be reached at pete@lakeforestpodcast.com. The link will be in the podcast notes below, as long as with all the other links to Steve's work as well. On behalf of my co-host, Skoo Walker, we thank you for listening. And if you really, really like us, you can always buy us a beer on Patreon. Cue the band. Steve, thank you, man.